Welcome to the Voices of Healing podcast. I'm your host, Tina Clark. Today's guest is gentleman Marcos Tavarez, and he is a professional motivator and speaker. And he's going to share with us today his mental health journey. And we're going to talk about voices that you may hear and what they are, and how he was able to understand what they were coming from and how to handle those voices. So, welcome to the show, Marcus.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Again, I really am inspired and motivated myself by you. So you're definitely a motivator in and of yourself. I do thank you for having me on the show. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So, tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and your background, and then we can get into your healing journey that you'd like to share with us today.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Gentleman Marcos. I go by a lot of things, including keto and including a motivator as well. I love the fact that I did happen to find that niche of gentleman within me. 4 years ago, if you would have met me, I was a completely different person. I was an accountant, a government accountant, 9 to 5, mundane, and then I had I happened to meet voices that were inside me that I had no idea I could communicate with. I went through an entire life-changing event where I lost a lot of things trying to find ways to get rid of voices and trying to get rid of the anxiety and the things that they were bringing to me. I learned over time that they were just trying to teach me things about myself and about other people that I needed to see, that they were trying to help me, not harm me. Once I was opened up to that, and once I stopped trying to have other people tell me what was wrong with me and try to look into myself, I was able to discover that I loved motivating, that I loved helping people, and that I love helping myself to be able to make people look as good as they feel and as good as they want to look everywhere, including social media, including at home, including anywhere that they are. I was able to do public speaking. I'm able to confer with people, and I'm able to business consult with others that are looking for innovative and holistic ways to make themselves communicate with each other and ways to talk to people inside and outside of themselves. And it's something I love to do in a very similar fashion to yourself. And I'm
So,
loving.
in 2021, all of a sudden, you started hearing these voices. Is that when it started?
Yes, it began in October of 2021. Slowly but surely, I started hearing whispers in my ears. Um, Tiny things like like very small. Someone said, "Hi, hey, listen," says just single words, singular words that I wasn't sure where they were coming from. And all of a sudden, they started sounding like my brother, and they started sounding like family members that weren't there. And I was like, this is really interesting. Like, I felt scared, and I didn't know what to do. I went to a doctor, of course, and it's very surreal to explain this to even to a psychiatrist, psychologist, that you hear voices. For some reason, they never took into account that I heard them, even though I told people I heard voices. Whether it's the way I present myself, I'm not sure, but I was never officially diagnosed with anything that has voices as one of the main components of my diagnosis, which was bipolar, was what I think I was put under in order to get antipsychotics the first
Yeah. So,
time.
what was happening in your life around that time? We know when you look back at that time, did anything happen to you, or did you experience to have these voices start
I was going
happening?
through what I would consider an existential crisis. I had just lost a job, my accountant job. I had just lost it due to paranoia that I was informed of by my voices was part of their initiation of my hearing them. But they had to get to that, they had to get me to a certain emotional state to where I could fully accept and intercept perception, hear them. And unfortunately, that did cause me to lose part of my identity. I did lose a relationship. It was a 7 year long relationship at that same time. I had lost all of my savings between the time I had lost my job to that October. I had completely lost everything. I was struggling to figure out who I was, where I was, and when I was going to be able to get back on my feet. And that's when I discovered I could hear them.
So, what do these voices tell you? What do you typically hear from them?
Um, at first, it was very unique and it sounded very um ancient, like very old. It wasn't like modern language. It was almost like they were trying to learn my internal language, my linguistics for myself. We got to a point where it was very demanding. It was very persecutory at first, or they were just like reprimanding me for things that I was doing that I didn't understand at first, and unfortunately, it just was a miscommunication. Anytime I'm not myself is when they seem to get upset. They were trying to help me and condition me to be myself. But being myself was very difficult for me at that time, as I was losing. I didn't have a sense of identity or a sense of self. Over time, I began to understand that. We began to understand each other, and now with the conversations that we have are, if somebody's talking to me as a counselor, not a counselor, but as a coach, and which is something that I do as well, or as a graphic designer, and somebody's with me in a meeting or in a consult, we talk about that person in a third person perspective as what they see, what I see, and how I can act as myself to help that person become more themselves, to better themselves. And it's something that I've loved to utilize and tell people that I do as a means to see that there is an additional perspective that I get that's very unique. And it's not like a medium or anything to that effect. It's just a way that myself communicates with myself. And it's no longer so persecutory. But anytime I'm not myself is when they do get aggravated and agitated. It's almost like having a personal mini coach inside myself.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like spirit guides, what spirit guides would be doing, which I would say spirit guides are a part of you and they're not separate from you.
I feel the same way. I feel very similar. I During my psychosis, which I did experience, out of body experiences, they guided me and took me to physical, well, in my head anyway, physical places that were as real as my house is to me. And I couldn't have gotten there any other way. It's one of the reasons why I was really inspired to talk to you, because I know you have such a deep, vast knowledge base of those things. But they took me and guided me to a place where I actually met myself, if that makes sense to you.
Hmm. Yes, it
And
does.
it's a very interesting experience to have. As my entire life, I've looked at myself and I've never been able to recognize my same self twice in a mirror. Like, it was always something different about me, and I've changed drastically from 14 to 38. Um, Tomorrow's my birthday, by the way. Sorry.
Is
Um,
today your birthday?
Tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. When I finally saw myself, when they took me to this place inside of myself, I met myself and I recognized myself instantly, and that never happens to me. And ever since that experience forward, I've been able to communicate with them in such a way that is me. So it's a very eye-opening experience, but I've been able to, fortunately, a lot of people can't, connect with these voices and change them from a persecutory to a strength and resolve building, confidence building means to be able to help other people do the same thing.
Yeah, well, I applaud you for talking about this because this is kind of a taboo topic.
It is.
And, no one wants to be labeled with a mental disorder because they do hear voices. But I will tell you that, you do hear things. Everybody hears things. And it could even just be the voice of your parent just repeating in your head something that they told you when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very common. You could have, a parent, a teacher, something they said to you, and they sometimes it was a critical voice, that would criticize you. I have that critical voice in my head, and it's actually part of my numerology because my life path number is 1. If you know anything about life path numbers, and we have this big bad judge in our heads all the time. Yeah, so it's just one of the things I have to keep quiet and manage, for my own positive mental well-being. But then also, being a psychic medium, I can communicate with different beings as well. And, if you build relationships with beings, I will say like archangels, you understand their personality over time and you start recognizing, oh, I know who this is. Oh, they'll literally tell you, their name. It's not a guessing game or anything, but they each have their own personalities. So, as you were trying to figure out what was going on, I know you were trying a lot of different modalities. So, what actually helped you the most?
The thing that actually helped me the most, and it's very unusual to say out loud, like you said, this is a taboo topic, and this is something that is very hard to do. It was very even hard for me to do.
Hmm.
I ended up self-isolating with with my brother here at my house. He does live with me. I do live with my brother, so there was somebody here. Um, to self-isolate with myself and just be able to sit down with my voices and talk, literally talk to them as often as they talk to me, and just let them know, like, you're not bossing me around. That's not what happens here. I know you want to talk to me, and I really do want to talk to you, and we're gonna have to figure out how this is gonna work between us. And literally, I want to say yell at myself internally, of course, but discussions took place to the point where we just got to an understanding. And when people do start hearing voices, from what I've discovered, what I've done research on, everybody from the psychiatrist to medical profession, anybody outside of yourself is going to tell you to run from them. They're going to tell you to hide from them. They're going to tell you to be afraid of these voices, that they're always wrong, that they're never right. And they're going to instill a fear in you. You can't run from yourself. There's nowhere to go.
Right, right, exactly.
So I had to establish that foothold, and it took me about 3 months of solid going to work, waking up, going to work, and coming home, self-isolating, eating dinner, coming out, and going back into my room, and just getting to know me in a way that these voices did not appreciate at first. They really couldn't stand me at first, even more so. Thankfully, we've had the respectable conversations, and I've kept that gentleman in me to the point to where we have discussions now about how we are going to help other people get motivated, including things like this podcast, including things like doing public speaking and motivational speaking about relationships and communication, where we're going to be able to help other people integrate with their voices to help them stand up with them instead of running from them, so that you're not trying to rip yourself in half. You're putting yourself together, and you help and motivate other people to be themselves as well.
Yeah, so these are parts of yourself. And so are what kind of things are they saying to you? I mean, you said they were reprimanding you. So what does that mean?
At first, it was very unique to hear reprimanding things for me. I have a very interesting childhood, a very unique perspective on things like suicide, on things like depression. From age 6, in journals that I had kept from then, I discovered that I had suicidal ideation since the age of 6. Um, I don't recall much of that, and it's probably due to disassociation or something to that effect, where I just don't recall it. But I wrote it down, and it's there in my handwriting. I know I wrote it. There's
Hmm.
no way around that. One of the first things that they told me, once I were able to discuss things, was go kill myself. And it was interesting because when they did say that at first, it didn't strike me as unfamiliar. That thought process, for 30 years, I had it, suicidal ideation, where that was my safe place. That was where I went, to look for connection for myself, to myself. I found that as my safe place before. And it's the way that they said it that made it uncomfortable for me. But it didn't scare me because I knew it wasn't going to,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. Once I got to know them, and they were telling me other things, to harm myself, to stop doing things, don't look up, telling me that trying to control me, I was able to talk to them and get to understand what they were doing was trying to condition me to listen to myself, to help me find my actual true voice. Because what I was always doing was what other people asked me to do, but to an extreme that caused me to not be me. It caused me to literally work myself to death, or be in a relationship and do whatever they wanted to death, like to my personal death, my
Hmm.
spiritual death. And they finally clicked for me that they were trying to just help me be myself and by myself, so that I could actually enjoy myself, which I never did before. And believe it or not, after 30 years, when I was 33 was the last time I can recall ever having a suicidal ideation thought process. I no longer have that at all. I didn't even know it was possible, because it's not a symptom or a condition to have suicidal ideation. Everybody has that thought every now and then. it's natural as a person to wonder about things, but I don't do that anymore at all. They basically cured suicidal ideation for me, and got rid of that. I'm able to stand confident within myself and say that I did that, and I no longer do. Um, it went from that to what I really truly love doing, which is helping people. I love helping others look and feel their best, and through graphic design, which is an art type therapy, which is another thing that they helped me discover. Um, I was able to use social media and able to use things like, like I said, graphic design, integrations, business consulting to make people's businesses, their self businesses, their mom and pop shops, their startups look phenomenal. And I'm totally amazed by that because I honestly can't draw a happy face. I can't draw worth a damn. I can't draw nothing. But I discovered I can do branding and marketing, and having rebranded myself personally from what I was to what I am now, I am definitely a completely different person. And it's thanks to my friends, my family, and of course these voices that help guided me, like you said, to this point in my life where I love what I do, who I am, and I want to be even more so in a position where I can help people understand that voices aren't necessarily a bad thing, and that you can always come back up and rebrand yourself to who you are and who you want to be.
Right. And the thing is you are in charge, not the voices. So you be in charge, and it's a back and forth communication. If they say something you don't like, or you need to give them feedback.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, and just remember that you're a soul and a body, and you're the one that dictates what happens and how you live your life and on planet Earth.
It's a very unique experience, and it's one of the things. Like I said, I read about you. And no joke. I mean, everybody does that. I think when you get on podcasts and things like that, you start to research more and more people, and it makes you more interested in everything. But your background is one that is very unique to you, and I love that you have that niche, and that it goes along with mine perfect. Your background and your experience is very it's very wanted by me. Like I want to just like soak it in all the way.
Well, awesome. Well, I do have a book on shamanic healing, you may be interested in. It's called Into the Tree, Journeying into the Spirit World.
Ooh.
And so it's a compilation of 80 of my shamanic journeys and soul retrievals that I've done for myself, for friends, family, clients. And I go to all sorts of places. It's almost like visiting different timelines to get answers. And you talk to all sorts of different people. And then there's always guides that show up to point me the next way. You need to go here, or you need to go talk to this person, or I'm here to walk you to the next place to get your answers that you're seeking. I think you'd really enjoy the book.
That definitely sounds like a good read to me. Like I've just it exploded in my head how much and how often people do hear voices. It is a very taboo subject, and it is a very unique experience to have anybody experience voices that enjoys them, that likes them, even to the point where they even try to confer with them, is something that's very hard to find. I've researched for hours and days, probably years by now, just over medical research, and I've only found one or two. Eleanor Langdon is one that had the TED Talk. I don't know if you've seen her TED Talk. It's an insane TED Talk. It's perfect, almost absolutely perfect.
Oh, what's her name again?
Eleanor
Uh-huh.
Langdon, Landon.
What does she talk about?
She's a psychologist who has schizophrenia, and her
Mm.
journey is one pretty similar to mine, where she discovers that she is going to communicate with hers. And I loved her perspective because she does have a medical profession, no like license and everything. She has the highest master's degree in, doctorate degree in psychology. She inspired me to do everything that I've done to look medically for something like that. I've sent her things to give her approval or medical research back from different things that she's done. But to find people and discover people that have a positive um, communication style with voices is very difficult to find. She was one of the first ones I found, and then you're another one, but I mean, there's very few. So I mean, I'm trying my best to discover methodologies and ways to communicate from a medical and a spiritual side to help more and more people, because I believe if more people were to be more receptive and actually sit back and listen and communicate with their voices instead of running from them where you can't, everybody, more people would have an experience like we do and be able to interact with multiple dimensions, aspects, perspectives of yourself and the world that will just open up your entire universe for you. And I think
Yeah,
people forget that the universe isn't outside of yourself. You have an entire universe within you first, and then it goes out from there.
right, exactly. You are part of the universe. You know, we're all one essentially, and we're all connected. So how prevalent do you think that voices are? I mean, does everybody hear voices? A percentage of the population? I know you didn't hear anything till 4 years ago.
I did not. I have actually tried to ask my voices, and I've asked them multiple times, multiple ways. What did I hear before I heard you? Because for some reason, the more receptive I became, the harder it is to remember what I used to think like, what it used
Mm,
to feel like before paranoia hit in, before I had the anxiety that was there before. And they told me it was dead silent. There wasn't anything going on in my head, like voice wise.
mm,
I believe that it's possible for anybody to hear voices because I know I didn't install voices in my head. Like I didn't put them in there. Like there's no like little door latch or anything in here that's gonna let me put them in there. Um, I don't believe that they're evil. I don't believe in things like that extreme. There isn't anything that I did different to myself to cause them to occur. So for me, it has to be something that everybody's capable or able to do. The hardware is the same inside my head, so I'm pretty sure everybody has the ability to. But I do believe that for me, during my existential crisis, I cried out to myself. I really did. It was the last time I could remember saying I didn't want to wake up anymore. Um, it was just part of my ideation stuff, and I called out to myself. I was like, please just send me something. Like somebody send me something so that I don't wake up anymore. I didn't know that I could be interpreted from another person or another place um, as something that occurred to me that would be symbolic of that, which would be hearing my voices, which are parts of, like you said, I believe are spiritual guides or parts of me, or I'm not really sure yet. I'm still working on that with them, but as a part of something that would cause me to be this person and not the person that I was. I've learned to accept that somebody's always listening, and since somebody loves me somewhere is definitely something that I've had to accept within myself because there was a long moment in my life where I didn't believe that was a thing. What was really eye-opening for me was somebody loves me somewhere. Um, I thought of a lot of people on that list, a whole bunch of people, my mom, my dad, my brother. I never made that list for myself. It didn't make sense for me to be on that list at all. It actually still makes me cry a little bit when I think about that because it actually is a little bit heartbreaking. But I made that list now. I love me now. Somebody loves me somewhere, and it's closer than I ever thought possible. I just never thought it was me, and I want the world to know that is something for everybody.
well, I love that, and I think what you experienced was an intervention. So you were in a bad place, and your guides or whoever these voices are came in and said, "Okay, we're going to come in here and help you out, and it might be harsh, but we need to get you out of this place, you know, and loving yourself and being your authentic self. 'Cause that's the
Definitely.
only way you're going to be happy."
I think the same thing too. I'm sorry. Like every time I think about that thought, like I'm still working on that, and it's very eye-opening to realize that I never made that list for me. I never in my life thought I would love myself the way that I do. It's really it it's warming and it feels good, but at the same time I'm like, I went so long without that, and it took myself and it took my spirit guides, it took my voices, my family and my friends to all come together to culminate into this. I'm not a terrible person within
Mm,
myself,
yeah, of
but
course you're not.
it's a very humbling experience to have.
Yeah, and I feel like because I've worked a lot with clients with family histories of trauma, that gets passed down, I feel like as a 6-year-old to be thinking about suicide, that's got to be inherited somewhere. I mean, there's no way a 6-year-old would be thinking about those things.
Yeah, when I discovered that thing in my journal, it was really hard for me to believe because I had actually read that journal before, like to my voices. It was something that we had gone through together. But for some reason, that page in that journal, I skipped. I didn't read
Mm,
that page. And that page there's so many things that go with that. But when I reread that and I read it with them, even they were confused as to what happened because I have a suicide attempt when I was 14. That didn't, of course it didn't, but I wasn't, it didn't complete itself. I didn't finish it. But it was hard for me to accept that it went even further than that. It went deeper than that. My entire life was based off of a consoling myself with being able to tell myself that I'm going to kill myself one day. And with them and through this journey of meeting myself and meeting other parts of me and interacting with things that I found familiar, symbolics completely blew my mind to the point to where that thought process, and I'm talking like that entire thought process of ideation does not compute anymore.
yeah.
I cannot even fathom that being an option anymore.
That's because you know who you are now and you love yourself now. So with those two things, that kind of thinking, goes out the window, you know.
And connecting with people and on podcasts and through like public speaking and through motivation, through helping people to discover their selves, giving people that rebirth feeling of reinvention and rebranding of whatever they are, who they want to be, and connecting with people like you who have similar experiences and experiences with positive experiences with voices and spirits and out of body experiences, astral projections, things like that. It just helps me. Like, and it helps everybody. It helps the world, and it's something that I want to join in with you, hopefully, and other things that we can do together in the future, which I would love to do. To be able to consult with people and meet with people and just learn to love everything about you, even if you don't, because you're going to be you either way. You can't be anybody but you.
Exactly. And that there are things out there that's going to help you. I know you mentioned before I pressed record that EDMR really helped you release a lot of emotions. And there's so many different things that you can try and just reach out. You can reach out to Marcus or me and we'll point you. And if I can't help you, I will find somebody to help you.
I do the same thing. I recommend people to everybody. That's something that I'm working on as we speak. A means for people to discover what type of coach can help you, what type of medium can help you, what type of a spiritual guide can help you. Because for me, when I discovered my voices, that was something that I couldn't understand. I was like, who am I supposed to look for? I look for doctors. That's the first go-to. Everybody does that. That's fine. That makes perfect sense. You go to your primary care physician. That's okay. They say there's nothing wrong with you physically. Your next step is a psychologist, psychiatrist. Okay, mentally, they're going to talk to you for a while, but that takes a long time. It
Mm,
isn't something that's quick. You can't get a diagnosis of schizophrenia in 1 or 2 sessions every other week. It doesn't work that way. I tried counseling and therapies that didn't require a psychologist or psychiatrist. I tried antipsychotics after that. Once I got to that point, I was lost because I was still hearing these voices. I couldn't run from myself. The medication made me feel like hell. I didn't want to be me anymore. I could understand how that trail of like that downward spiral could occur for people because you can't be you if you're on these things and people are telling you things about yourself that don't align to you. And a psychiatrist or psychologist, yes, they are very smart. They are very informed. They are very, and they help a lot of people. It's not nothing against them. But for me, telling me to do things that didn't make sense to me because they know me better than I do, or my voices would know me better than my own thoughts do. It didn't make sense for me.
yeah.
So
And a lot of times they'll tell you that the voices aren't real, which is, what does that mean if you're hearing the voices? I mean, that's
that's
not
what
helpful at all. So if you ever want to look into more of schizophrenia, I recommend looking at Jerry Marzinski because he used to treat a lot of schizophrenic patients that heard the voices and he figured out a lot of things by treating them. And he does a lot of podcasts too.
Jerry
So
Marzinski.
yeah, Jerry
Okay.
Marzinski used to be a psychotherapist at a Georgia mental hospital. No, he does the podcast circuit, but it's very interesting because he says the negative voices are not coming from you, and you need to tell them they're lying about everything. Because in the end, after listening to him, the only truth is love. So we come from love, and the only truth is love. So anything negative that you hear is actually a lie.
I do feel that. I understand that too. That's something that I recently came across was at the end of the day, like emotions are what are real. What you feel is what's real. My
Right.
voices for me are, to me, my shadow aspects of myself. I ended up pulling from Carl Jung a lot.
Yeah.
Integrating the shadow was something that definitely hit me hard and definitely I paralleled with very well.
Yeah.
Um, I feel the
So for
converse.
me, I had a voice, and I think it came from my mother because my mother was very cautious about everything, and she always thought about the worst case scenario. So she was trying to be safe. She was trying to keep me safe. But in the end, I had this voice that kept going to the worst case scenario. And I thought, this is crazy. I can't think about like driving down the road and getting into an accident every time. Like, what kind of life is that? So I decided to turn it around. And when that habit or that thought came in or the voice came in, I said, now I said, I'm completely safe. Or now my favorite prayer before I get in the car is, I ask for the most benevolent outcome for all drivers and animals on the road today. And then I just let it go and I don't think about any of those worst case scenarios.
I did something very similar to that. When I used to do the same thing. Well, dude, I thought it was ideation, but after a while, I guess they picked up on that and they used that against me to get me conditioned to not use that anymore. But they bring up negative things to me, things that I feel are negative or things they feel are negative. But what it really is just something that isn't myself or isn't beneficial to me. It's not a lie per se, but I'll think of something like, "Oh, I look ugly today," or something like negative about myself, and they'll bring it up to me. They'll be like, "Yeah, you're ugly," or something like, "Wait a minute, that just doesn't feel right to me." And it's because they're trying to get me to change that train of thought. They want me to like release those negative feelings and emotions towards them, so that I can let
Hmm.
it go because it's outside of myself technically. But you're definitely right. It's a very hard thing to accept that the voices are real to you. It's it's because nobody
And
else understands it.
it's not something that you're going to turn off, and the medication doesn't turn it off.
It really doesn't, and it's very hard to explain that just because it's not real to them, it's real to you. Exactly how it feels. I've watched so many videos with my brother trying to get him to see or experience something similar to me, and it's just not possible. There's no way to give somebody the experience of something hearing your thoughts as fast as you think them
Yes,
in
they're
a
very
full
fast.
conversation while you're
Yes.
conversing with somebody else. it
Hmm.
it's a very unique experience because that speed of the speed of thought is extremely fast. They know as
Yes.
soon as you think it.
Yeah, and it's called clairaudience, and it's a psychic ability. One of
I
the
mean,
psychic abilities to hear.
they can. It's a very hard to explain to people because in a conversation with people like you and I right now speaking, well, I don't know about the way you can do that through the internet for you. I can't hear your thoughts. That doesn't work for me that way. I hear mine. But our conversation is person to person. So you have to wait for that delay of your thoughts outside conveyed, they hear it, and then you interpret it, and then you respond, and then I respond to that. That doesn't happen when it's with voices. It's instantaneous.
Yes.
And that includes the intention, that includes the feeling, that includes everything. It's all inclusive of all of the things that a communication method between two people have with no misunderstandings, no misunder, no misinterpretations with voices. They know exactly what you meant.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Like you can't
Yeah.
lie. It definitely keeps you an honest person to have this experience.
And also, your experience is your experience. And if someone tells you you didn't experience it or you didn't hear that, that's gaslighting. Let's
Yeah.
call it what it is. Gaslighting is emotional abuse to tell someone that they're not experiencing what they're experiencing, according to their belief system. So, yeah, I mean, you got to be open to we're all individuals and unique, and, you know, work with somebody's experience, take it as a truth and a fact, and work with them from that point.
Yeah, personal truth is something that I've learned is something I didn't have. I didn't have a personal belief system for myself because I would always deep dive into where I was working or who I was dating to the point where I would avoid my own personal truths and work around them or work under them to get over them to be able to accommodate other people. I was a people pleaser like no other.
Yeah,
To
former
my
people
detriment.
please here as well.
To my detriment, I was a people pleaser like bad. It's probably why I
Yeah.
fell apart like I did. But my brother being one of my biggest, he's my devil's advocate for a lot of things because he's almost my opposite, and I love him for that. We're business partners for that reason. I love that he does give me that perspective that I can't have because I'm not him, and it's definitely usually the opposite. Getting to learn how to stand up to myself for myself with his help, being that devil's advocate, because he has a very acoustic and musical background. So for him, auditory is auditory. It's
Mhm.
that's it. There is no in between. He's a musician at heart. He plays like different instruments. He's traveled the world playing jazz music. That's him. So when I told him I heard auditory hallucinations, he's like, that doesn't work. He's like, that's not possible because they're not auditory. I had to learn and discover ways and methods that for me, I had to teach myself not everybody's gonna understand me, no matter how much they love me, no matter how much they respect me, and not let that define me. I had to learn to build
Mhm.
myself and my self-respect up to where I could even do what I'm doing with you right now and discuss these things positively and as a respectable means to my voices and myself, to my guides, to all of the things that I've experienced, and know that it's good for me and that it's real to me. That's not real to everybody, but I am who I am because of it, and it is an experience that I want everybody to get something from if I do explain it to them. That's something that's very hard to do. I'm very thankful that he is my brother, despite us having some fights over this stuff. But I'm very fortunate to have what I do, and like I said, I respect you a lot for being able to do the same thing that you do in a respectable and in a highlighting way that is positive. And it's one of the things, healing voices. I was like, oh my goodness, like I have to talk to her.
I know
This
that the
is like,
podcast is healing voices, so this is perfect.
I know, like I have to. There's no way I can't talk to her.
Well, I think you're very brave to talk about this, and I think that at being a human, you do have psychic abilities. That's part of our natural makeup. It's whether or not you are using them, or, some are stronger than others, but we all have it and we could all develop it. And I think that you're just suddenly became clairaudient. And I think as a collective of humanity, I think that we're all becoming more sensitive and more psychic. And the downside of that is the anxiety is going up
Yeah.
in everybody. And you got to understand that we're moving into a different age now, the Aquarian age, and we're all changing together. And that what you were told about these gifts, that it was evil or wrong or a sin or a mental disorder, all of that was a lie. So we know we need to come to an understanding about what's happening to us and who we truly are as human beings.
I definitely agree with you on that. There's definitely a unity within the universe somewhere that everybody's part of one thing, and whether that's part of yourself, because I believe whenever you do go through that transformation of that ego death, that spiritual awakening, whatever you call it for yourself, um, you go back to one, and it's within you. You go into yourself. I don't believe that you escape yourself and you leave this body. I believe you go into yourself and go into a place that only you can go to, that you built for yourself, that you and the other side, whoever your guide is to guide you to that place, build together. for you to enjoy, for you to be at peace with, and for you to know that your part in what we're doing here on this planet, as this part of dimension, this third dimension on Earth, is good, and you're complete. It's one, it's unity, and it's a really beautiful feeling to feel. Everybody deserves to feel it.
Yes, for sure. And it sounds like you found yourself and you found your authentic self and you learned to love yourself in this incarnation, which is a beautiful thing. So, Marcus, can you share your websites of where people can find more info about you and contact you?
Of course. I do keep a lot of my links and everything for me. I do have a couple different things. I launched myself, of course, as a brand, a gentleman brand in all and of itself. So I do have a personal site for my coaching and things like that. I do have Gentleman Graphic Studio, which is a graphic studio I designed and implemented with my brother. He's co-owner with me, to do things for people, graphic design, web design. We do everything that you can think of under the sun. For anybody that wants to do things like rebranding and stuff like that. I also have BU Magazine, which I just published not too long ago in December. I'm actually about to launch a different thing as well. I'm going to get in contact with you about later on if you're into, called, I'm working on the name itself. To be honest, it's kind of like the last thing I'm focusing on because it's important to me to name that what it needs to be. But it's part of BU, and it's probably going to be either BU Institute or BU University. I'm sorry, BU University, something to that effect, where it's going to be able to help people find out who they need to go to or where they can go to get to help or assistance in getting guided to where they want to be. And all of those links for everything like that can be found on my link tree. So to keep it simple for everybody, it's just linktree.com/gentleman Marcos Tavarez, the way that it is on my name. Everything has that tag on it. Gentleman Marcos Tavarez.
Yeah, so all of that information is in the show notes. And I really enjoyed this conversation with you, Marcus. And I thank you for being on the show and sharing your experience.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that too. I appreciate you and what you do and what you guide for people is really inspirational to me. And I can't thank you enough for letting me be on here.
Great. Thank you so much.